Imagine a learning environment which offers freedom of movement, where everyone, participants and providers alike, are listened to and respected, where access to areas of personal interest and value make up the core of the learning plan, and a wide range of spaces for everything from quiet independent work to messy group work allow freedom for learners to meet their own needs and reach out for support as needed. Hello, I'm Terry Novacek, and this is the Element is Everything podcast, where we discuss topics associated with finding your element, that place where interests and talents collide to bring good things to yourself and others. We are all familiar with the traditional model of schooling in which all students follow the same curriculum within the same time frame, mostly determined by a teacher who tells us what, when, and how to learn. Some people believe that learning and education require force, compulsion, and coercion. At Element Schools, we don't believe that to be true. Today we meet with Ken Danford, who doesn't believe that either. The title of his book, Learning is Natural, School is Optional, pretty much says it all. Ken is the co-founder of North Star, a self-directed community center for teens located in Massachusetts, where he and his team take the idea of self-directed learning to a whole new level. North Star is not a public school, nor a charter school, nor even a private school. While it is not free like a public school, it is less expensive than private school tuition. The center offers support to teens who want a place to socialize, to collaborate on projects, and to meet with teachers and mentors. Let's dive in and learn more. Good morning, and thank you for making some time to meet with me. I'm really excited to share your program with our listeners. I've really enjoyed your book. I've listened to your TED Talk. Of course, I met you on your recent webinar, and we're very blessed here in California with our charter school system and the freedom that we can have by setting up schools as independent study and allowing the flexibility, much like what you guys do at North Star. We're all about, students and the adults finding their element, being able to develop it, which is what North Star does as well. So I'm excited to swap stories here. And I was wondering if you would be willing to start with your story, where all this started for you.
Sure. It started from a pretty conventional place of becoming a teacher because I liked school well enough and I wanted to make schools better and was going to become a public school reform fellow. I taught 6 years of public 8th grade U.S. history, public school in Washington, D.C., and then up in Amherst, Massachusetts. And then I was enrolled in a doctorate program at UMass so that I could become a principal or superintendent or secretary of education to be a further school reformer. And I kind of hit the wall of deciding that this is just not the right model. And, that's pretty far into things to discover that as a teacher, what was okay for me as a kid is really not okay for most people. And it's kind of unjust. And I really felt that the problem was compelling kids to do things they didn't really want to do for the sake of whatever grade they chose to get on it, and then threatening them if they chose not to participate at all. And it just began to feel, way too oppressive for me to work in the school, assigning kids tardiness, detentions and hats and bathing passes and just, you must do my 8th grade U.S. history because I know it's good for you and the other teachers know it's good for you too. And if you don't do it, you'll be bad and we will tell the world that you're bad and then you'll be doomed. And that was preposterous anyway. That people who don't do well in school turn out fine. And I know that. And so I began to question, what are we doing here and why are we doing it this way? And the fact that the kids who didn't want to be in school often had activities outside of school they really loved, and they would be sad when they were over, theater and sports and music and other kinds of things that were really important to them that they chose. They weren't rooting for snow days on the things they loved. They just wanted snow days and summer vacation from school and from me. Well, I don't want to be in a job like that. And then I decided that I couldn't necessarily change schools to be different. How do you make school more like camp? Well, get rid of grades. Tell kids they don't have to come in 5 days a week. tell them they can do it or not. A week here, a week, whatever. You can't make school optional, and independent classes are optional at school. And there's no real pathway to doing that I could see back then. And so I kind of gave up my dream of trying to make schools more of the kind of places that I wanted to be in, or to allow me to be in relationship with kids by asking them, would you like to do this activity, and have them only do their elective kinds of things. And so I wasn't sure what I was going to do then. This is 1995, and a friend gave me a copy of Grace Llewellyn's Teenage Liberation Handbook. I learned about homeschooling for the first time, really. Learned there was an unschooling approach. These kids could just start with their interests, start with their strengths. And it turns out that that's a really healthy thing to do. And I was kind of flabbergasted. And then I decided with my friend who gave me the book, Joshua Hornick, that we should quit our jobs and help all the school kids that were tormenting live this lifestyle. So that's what I've been doing for the last 28 years, is coaching kids who are in school to understand they have an option to not going to school whatsoever. Don't find a least bad school. Just don't find any school. Just stop going. And the sooner you stop going, the healthier you'll be. But maybe you need a community center and a supportive team and community in place to go during the day to make that a realistic opportunity for you.
Right. So can you tell us how North Star works? What is North Star?
Sure. It's a building I'm sitting in right now in outside of Amherst, Massachusetts, in Sunderland, to be precise. On a bus line on a major road, we have a standalone building with a yard, and kids can come inside and outside. It's a community center that's open during the day. So everything's optional. The kids can come whenever they want, literally at any moment. They can come and go as they please. They can go for a walk. They can arrive at any time of the morning. They can leave at any time in the afternoon. They can come some days or not other days. They can come as much as they wish, just like you and I would use an adult community center or senior center. And when you're here, there's a whole calendar of classes that meet on a weekly basis. Once a week, there's all kinds of book groups in science and math and art and hikes and cooking and current events, all kinds of things, games, all kinds of things are organized and available, being offered. Kids can do them or not. There's no credits. There's no grades. There's no diplomas. There's a lot of one-on-one tutorials happening here. Kids want math, or they want a Spanish lesson or guitar lesson or something of that sort. There's a lot of one-on-one tutorials, and every teen here has an advisor. They meet with once a week to discuss how life is going for them, both at North Star and outside of North Star. What are their projects, and how's that coming along? What are you reading? Where else do you go? And then, but kids can just be here and socialize and do nothing, like the adults at a senior center I picture somehow, having coffee and sitting around chit-chatting. And so the idea is, by creating the infrastructure that I think most people need to consider the possibility of living life without any school, you can really have a vital role for teens who want that lifestyle to pursue it. And so it's glorious.
Do you have a typical student that you attract?
No, most of the kids, more than half the kids, come here. They're going to school every day and just kind of annoyed and bored and kind of nonconformist, and wondering, do they have to stay here till age 18? And they're, your poets and your musicians and your artists kinds of kids. They go to school every day but hate it. And finally, they, things get bad enough, they push hard enough and complain hard enough that they do find that there is another way, and they call North Star, or their parents do. And I tell them they don't have to go to school. It's fine. And then they stop going and do this alternative thing, even if their siblings are still going to school. We get maybe a third of our kids are coming with some kind of mental health, stress, anxiety, depression, eating issue, self-harming issue, and they're not going to school, and it's a total disaster. We get another group of kids who are refusing to go to school. I wouldn't say they have any of those other prior mental health woes. They just think school's stupid and aren't impressed by the threat of detentions. And, they figure if you get suspended, you don't have to go to school. Isn't that clever? And so, we have our school refusal kids, and I say, well, good for you. You win. You've proven the point, and I agree, and you never have to come here either. But let me help you do this from a sense of optimism and strength rather than anger and resistance. Like, you're correct. Let's channel this differently. And then we get some kids who are here because none of those things really apply. They want to do school, but they can't. They're on the autism spectrum, maybe somehow. They may have physical sleep disorders, health woes that make school really hard, or whatever reasons, learning differences they may have, that whatever they're trying, they wish school would work, but it's not. They're not that angry about it, but it's a kind of a waste of time.
Do you have any favorite stories as far as discouraged teens that have come to you, and after the pressure was taken off, they were really able to thrive?
That's 300 stories off the top of my
Right.
head, right? But just I think of two young 15-year-old girls who I just they came describing meltdowns over school stress in their bedrooms late at night, just losing their minds with stress and not understanding the assignments and ripping their papers and coming to tears just with the stress of trying and anxiety that they just don't know what to do and they can't do it and this is terrible and they're doing everything wrong and they're going to have a terrible life because they're doomed. And they come out of school and they come to a place where those expectations don't exist. And we say, so, you're interested in gardening. And one went on to work for an organic food association. And another one has gone into the field of social work. They get out of school, they dabble at North Star, they breathe, they get engaged in some of our activities. They start doing community college at a certain age. They have jobs. One of these two was running a used clothing store and was like the main employee at 17, opening and closing alone. Um, another one was working at Walmart and ended up becoming someone who was 16, 17 years old, was closing and reconciling the 7 cash registers every night at 10 o'clock at night. Like getting people out of the muck and then saying, all right, let's just dry off and rest and breathe for a minute. And then let's think about what you really might want to do. It's brilliant. One of our kids is now a fly fishing guide who charges $450 a day to go to all the great local fishing spots. And, that's what he did when he was 14. His mom was a nurse. She'd pack him with a sandwich, put him on a kayak. Off he'd go to some pond all day. The next day he'd have a video camera on the back of his kayak and video all day, and the next day he'd stay home and edit all the videos. Got a YouTube channel, got sponsors. He's a fishing guide now.
Neat.
And we have kids who are college professors. We have people who are school superintendents. We have people who are city council members and get elected to these things. We have loads of librarians, and we have loads of teachers. Bless the North Star alums who go into schooling to become teachers. So they're everywhere because at some point, what you do for high school just doesn't matter so much. And the sooner we can tell people that, that when you're 23, what you did for high school, whether you went to a charter school or regular public school or private school or religious school, no one homeschooled in some kind of familiar way or unfamiliar way, at some point, no one cares anymore. That was your adolescence. Did you like it? Was it good for you or not? And whatever worked or didn't work for you is fixable or not, when you're 21 to 25, what is it, 30 or whatever, we're adults. We still have agency in our lives now to change what we don't like. And so the joy is it's so immediate. I met a young woman yesterday morning for the first time who was getting suspended from school because she figured out that was the best way to not go to school. And her mother wasn't really mad at her because the kid was right to be angry about the things that were going on. This is, a 12-year-old seventh grader who's just annoyed at middle school and is getting suspended on purpose, just not have to go. And today they're visiting here for the first day and it's over. It's easy, right? It's like, you were right. That's a silly institution. It's too rigid. The people there behave badly. They're not nice to you, the other kids, I'm saying. And so you come here and you pick and choose what room you want to be in with which kids. You go to the activities you want. You suss out the adults here. And we're all going to respect your choices. It's not that hard. And it turns out that she's having, the best day of her life, right? I mean, I'm I haven't heard that from her mouth, but I'm making that up right now. But she's having a grand time here, finding out who's who and what's what. And is this place real? It's like going to, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, except you're allowed to touch the chocolate, so.
Right. And so speaking of behavior, has behavior been a problem with the mix of teens coming in?
No and yes. I mean, by and large, we're a voluntary organization and people value what we're offering and they come if they like us and they like this place. And you don't go to a place that you don't like just to be annoying. Like, adults don't really do that for the most part. Free people don't really do that. Even annoying kids don't really do that. Now, there's some kids with social confusion or issues, and or sometimes they're immature and they think everybody's not going to like them, so they better behave that way on purpose to make sure everybody doesn't like them. We have kids who sit in our public room with friends and they want to talk about raunchy topics out loud and try to get the rest of us to listen to them be raunchy, and we can tell them to stop it. On occasion, we have kids who can't manage a strong emotion and have outbursts, and we have to talk about If someone's really annoying you, there's some ways to handle it, and here's how we do it. And you can ask people to stop or whatnot. As long as people basically get the premise that in public spaces, there's a general wide range of ways to respond when you're upset that are short of, meanness and violence. Um, Things are pretty good. I mean, in 28 years, there's been 2 or 3 kids we've had to ask not to come back who wanted to come back. Usually, people who just don't want to be here will leave and not come back because they think we're annoying and we do it all wrong and they don't like a teen center. So that's fine. It's not that everybody loves North Star, but people don't come here to create trouble. And if they are, it's usually like 14-year-old. Do they really mean it that I can do nothing there? I'm going to do nothing, but I'm going to do nothing in the most annoying way possible and see what they say. And then we have to tell them they can't do that. It's pretty trivial trouble.
Right. And so is it okay to come and do nothing?
It's okay to come and do nothing because there's no such thing as doing nothing. These kids are finding out, they're trying to make friends. They're being out of their house. They're finding out what will happen if they just mind their own business and what's the boundary of not bothering other people and being ignored and left alone. And I think that's really healthy. And then there's a space where if you do that in tandem with other people in a way that is like being loud or leaving trash all over the place or insisting that everybody else pay attention to you by doing attention-seeking behaviors, that we're going to ask you to stop. And so it's not very complicated. It takes attention, and so we do that.
Yeah.
It's not really not that complicated. It's at the beginning of the year. Right now, we've had a couple of issues. In fact, we have a couple of live issues at North Star right now, so it can be a challenge. But I mean, we have 60 kids, and I'm talking about 4 or 5 kids who just really want to find out what's our boundary with them, and are we going to kick them out, and how badly can they behave, or what will be the trigger when we finally tell them they're going to have to leave, and then they don't really want to leave, and then they cry. But then, oh, I found out. That's the boundary, right? Some of them have to find that out.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you do workshops, classes. I know you have guest speakers. How do you determine your schedule?
Mostly there's staff here. The core staff are all people who serve as advisors. They're mostly 2 or 3 days a week. Some of us are 4 days a week. North Star is closed on Wednesdays, by the way. We try to tell kids that as a alternative to school, they can't come here 5 days a week and be that passive about just turning their lives over to another institution instead. So the kids can come here up to 4 days a week, and most staff work here 2 or 3 days a week, a couple or 4 days a week. But we're all advisors. In addition to meeting with kids privately, about their lives, we each teach 2, 3, 4 classes a week. And usually it comes from our own core gut of what we feel like doing, whether that's a history class or a book group or a writing thing or a science or a math thing or theater or band or some kind of art. There's a class now called Smash Art. There's a cooking lunch class. There's a desserts class. There's a bread baking class. So there's a lot of music. But there's a decent amount of math. There's 3 or 4 math groups on our weekly calendar. There's quite a few science things. There's gardening. There's physical science. It's mostly coming from people's thoughts of what would I like to share? What was my favorite class ever? What do I want to practice? And then sometimes kids put classes on for each other. The kids create their own classes that they want to teach or run. Sometimes parents, volunteers show up and say, I have this financial literacy for youth project that I do professionally. Can I come do a couple sessions at North Star? So we get adult volunteers, but it usually comes from the people offering what they want to offer. Sometimes, kids will request something and we try to make it happen. That's largely happened recently with something with like American Sign Language. We pushed to find someone or create a class because there was some request for it that wasn't being fulfilled. But generally, we don't sit around and ask kids, what do you think you want to learn? Because kids don't know to ask for the weird stuff that adults want to share. There's a fellow here doing a meteorology class. The kids wouldn't have thought to ask for meteorology. So it's just fine to have the adults come up with things they love that they want to share right now and see how it goes with kids.
Mm-hmm. What are your hours of operation? I know it's 4 days a week, but
8:30 to 4, and then 4 to 5. Everybody, we don't have a custodian. It's cleaning hour from 4 to 5, and everybody's supposed to stay once a week and help clean. So from 4 o'clock is everybody leaving except the cleaning team, and 8:30 is the earliest. Sometimes 8:15. Someone's here unlocking the door for early critters.
But if they're coming, they don't have to be there at 8:30. Like somebody can come in.
Absolutely not. Usually from 8:15 to 9, if it's me and like one other kid who got dropped off by a working parent, or had to take a bus in or whatever, it's 9:15 to 10 o'clock before it gets kind of crowded.
Okay.
And by about 2:30 or 3, a lot of people have gone, and who knows? It varies on the day.
So how many years have you been in operation?
This is our year 28.
Wow, congratulations. Have you had any pushback from the public education or any education system or the community?
No, just in my mind, especially the first 10 years, I was waiting for the phone to ring. No. In fact, people tend to respect us and refer kids to us, though quietly. Lots of therapists refer people to us. If family, if they're school family and they are applying for homeschooling for the first time, and I'm coaching them through that process, it's a very perfunctory process, and we've never had any pushback from a school saying that we can't approve this family. What are you talking about? You're trying to get the wrong people. This is ridiculous. Like, never. And then the fact that we run as an open place where kids can hang out and come and go as they please and not do the things, and we're not a school. We get fear from parents. We get people who say that's not going to be for my kid, and they hang up and they don't want to come here, but not a legal kind of you ought to be shut down or anti North Star pushback. The fears have been all over the map, or the misconceptions, like, we're just for homeschoolers or people who are already homeschooling, which we're decidedly not. We do have a lot of existing homeschoolers now, more even so after the pandemic. But mostly we've always been trying to support families who couldn't or wouldn't homeschool very long to choose that approach after a schooling approach, right? So we're not for existing homeschoolers in the way that people think we might be. We're also not just for gifted kids or super self-directed kids already. We're not for troubled kids. We're for pretty normal, run-of-the-mill kids who don't like school and don't want to put up with it anymore. You're nonconformist kids. So there's that misconception. And frankly, every neighbor a business owner has always ended up becoming a donor to our various fund drives because they're amused and they like us, our kids. Our kids have gone on to all 5 local colleges: Amherst, Smith, Mount Holyoke, Hampshire, UMass. Guidance counselors like us. People know, what it might mean. Loads of our kids go to the community colleges. They love us. The local businesses, that get our kids walking in at the corner stores, they're happy to see our kids during the day because they're reasonably well behaved. People like us. We're doing something a bit odd. People don't necessarily understand it, but there's no pushback.
That's great. I mean, you're definitely doing something of value. Do you find kids that come do it for a while and go back
Yes.
to the convention?
So I would say out of 60 kids, we can expect every year 5 will re-enroll in a public school next year. Mostly kids age out, and they age out of here at the top end at different ages. And often that's to full-time community college or a full-time 4-year college, having dabbled at community college already. Some of them age out into full-time work or travel or other, 18, 17-year-old opportunities that are kind of full-time beyond this age phase that they've been in. But younger ones, especially, 7th, 8th graders, decide they want to go to the Voc Tech. They want to see what high school is all about. They want to be where the 500 kids are, not the 50 or 60 kids. And so there's kids who always want to try school. They get into the lottery for the charter school and get a slot. And so, this North Star's approach doesn't always resonate for everybody. And they think maybe I'd be better off going to school for high school and getting a regular transcript because I can't motivate myself well enough. So, that's.
And they stay in school.
Yeah.
That's what yes. Yeah. Well,
and then they do well, and some of them attribute doing well in high school to having had a year or 2 out of school. And there's like, thank you, North Star. I needed that break. I needed that thing during middle school years. I didn't really want to do that for high school, but it was essential to me then, and I'm really grateful to you now. And I consider myself an alum of North Star all the way, even though I went to high school too. Right, and so they say nice things about us, but it wasn't the thing they wanted to do. So yes, that happens, but I'm talking sometimes. And then also there's people, again, we have no admissions. We welcome everybody. We turn nobody away from money. We turn nobody away for being a hard case. And so, if we were trying to, get 100% long-term retention, we'd do a different strategy. By welcoming everybody, there's a certain number of kids who are here for 3 months and out. These are kids with much larger woes than school versus homeschooling. And we're just one blip of a stop on their adolescent trail of 17 school programs and things, right? And so I don't take that on the chin. I'm glad to know them. I'm glad to offer them this option. Sometimes we're a pleasant place for a few months to a year or two, but sometimes people are just not able to sustain that kind of stability, and so they come and they go. But that's not many, but that's some of our population. But my own kids chose to go to school. They didn't come to North Star. And a lot of staff kids have kids who choose to go to school, and a lot of the kids here have brothers and sisters who choose to go to school. So, we're pro choosing school. We're just anti you must go to school or die theory.
Right. Well, and I remember the term, it's the first time I'd heard it, but in your book, consent-based learning.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, that one of the people who uses that is Blake Bowles. I don't know if you're familiar with Blake in his books. And I'm not sure where we both picked it up from. It comes out of other kinds of, in the modern era of, sexual relations. And it seems like that should be appropriate for asking people, would you like to take this class? Do you want to learn this from me or not? Do you want me to teach this thing to you? Is this a skill that you want to get? And if you don't want it, I'm not going to try to make you get it and then give you a bad grade for not doing it. Like, that just seems hurtful. It's not the life interaction that I want with kids. But that's what school is. We accept that as normal. So, and I'm not against, by the way, I'm not against parents requiring activities for their kids to some extent. Sometimes parents do know better that their kids are avoiding all books all the time, and someone should take away their phone and have them read for a half hour a night or something. Like, I'm not against parenting decisions, but North Star is more like a YMCA or a gym or the library, and you don't have librarians telling you which books you must sign out. You can't take out any more Harry Potter books until you read some other literature first. That's enough for that genre for you, right? Librarians would never do that, right? Or you've taken out too many videos and not enough books, or audio books but not reading books. What's wrong with you, right? And you wouldn't have your gym desk ID person checker yell at you for being late or not working out hard enough, or they saw you with a Twinkie. Like, that's not what people do unless you hire them to be personal trainers, right? And so that's what we're after, that kind of relationship with kids, which has that kind of basic respect. And that there's a different place with therapists, with doctors, with parents, where, kids can be told, some of the things you're doing are really unhealthy, and we can make those observations and share our concerns with kids. We have these with the advisories, and we can pipe up, but just on a more minute to minute or class by class basis, we don't require things because we think that consent is the appropriate relationship.
Do a lot of them have trouble with it when they first come there? Like, is this for real? What's the catch?
Yes. I mean, it's not trouble. It was the first day. They're like, I'm going to the bathroom. And I'm like, do you need help? Like, why are you telling me that? Right. And so, I'm going to sit outside. Oh, I was going to go to the writing workshop. I told my mom I was going to go to the writing workshop, but now I'm with this friend and we're going to go, talk some more. I'm not going to go to writing workshop today. And I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. And, you might tell the writing workshop instructor who's expecting you, but appreciate if you be honest with your mother when you go home today, that she's not deluded, that you made some other choice. But they don't know that. It's just that we don't consider that our domain.
So along those lines, then, as a parent, if I'm allowing my child to spend their time there, and I do believe that they're going to this writing workshop, do you find parents that get upset feeling like you should be reporting that to them?
We do. We have 3 times a year what we call support reports, where we write down what we're doing with kids, what kids are doing when they're here. We have beginning, middle, end of the year meetings with parents. So in October, we've been doing all these meetings. We're sending out a first round of reports to people. It becomes transparent pretty quickly. Also, parents can call up and ask us if they feel like they don't have a handle on things and they want to know more. Every teen has this advisor, and parents can call that person. So it's pretty transparent pretty quickly, not in the moment, not in the day, like your kids quitting, skipping a class the way a public school would do it or a private school would do it. But, within a matter of 2 weeks, like, it's coming out, like, your kid's actually, eating a lot of potato chips and going for a lot of walks and not going to many classes. And then parents can make what they want of that, right? And sometimes, all right, well, that's the phase we're in, and if, you're an adult who had a really rotten, lousy job for a number of years and you need a break before you start your new one, you might have a month or 2 in between things. Or if you're retired and from a long, hard job after many years, the first month might not be your most active new activity month.
Right. Yeah.
And so you take a kid who's out of school, we want kids to be honest. We want kids to own their choices. And they say, I really had a good time meeting all these new people. I couldn't believe I could just do that. And, frankly, I think that hanging out and meeting kids is more important to me right now than going to every last conversation about, current events in Gaza. Like I'll skip it this week. If I talk about the House Speaker one more time, the kids are going to be like, we don't care. Or I do care, but I can get that information elsewhere. So trusting kids to make a choice for themselves about, is the class valuable and do I want to be part of it? And it's not flippant. I mean, if you're part of an ongoing class that you need to be present for every time, we don't endorse skipping it, right? Some classes can be dropped in, but some classes really are building things. And you don't want to be in a book group with people who randomly come as an adult. That would stink. And it's true for kids too. And so, we try to have kids use some thoughtfulness and caution and commitment about their choices. A drop in class, they can take or leave. But again, it's more about the honesty and that what you're doing at 14, 15 years old is really not going to revolutionize your life for the most part. You might find a new interest, you might make a new friend, but let's stop acting like every last class is the be all end all, or that it's even automatically better to go to classes than to not go to classes. And having the maturity. And in fact, one of the behavior issues you were asking before is when kids sit around in a group in our common room, they really need to learn how to manage socializing in a public space and what kind of topics are okay and where that boundary is. It's probably a more valuable lesson for them to get when they're getting resistance from other kids and adults than going to one more split group that they don't really care about anyway.
Real world experience.
You have to get over the hump, first of all, of realizing everything we built up schools for is kind of, a popped balloon over here. And so if kids read books on their own, great. If they read books in a book group, great. If they're reading fewer books than kids in school read, it's okay. And these same kids probably weren't very much in school either. And by empowering them and respecting them and trusting them, they're going to have a better attitude about themselves and their relationship with adults and relationships with the institution. And we're after a longer arc of maturity and self-awareness and honesty and being 17 with your head on straight.
They're still learning something somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, we think living is learning, right? Of that ilk,
right?
In the schooling world. So the John Holt side of things. So once you're both in that side of things, along with the reduced fear that somehow being unproductive academically at 15 years old is going to kill you, then you can relax into what's the most interesting, meaningful life that my child's living, can be living, and are they doing it? And if they're not, those are concerns, right? If your child is not declaring interests and taking risks and doing new things, and it can be worrisome. Worry about that too. But our role at North Star is one of investigation and comment, not one of making sure or enforcing. Can't enforce that people feel mastery. You must be good at something. Yeah, that would be crazy, right? So we notice that you haven't found anything to really care about that much, it seems. How is that for you? Is a different approach than trying to make sure everybody turns out a certain way.
Yeah. So, well, thank you again for your time and the work that you do. Your book is phenomenal, and I'll make sure that I put all that in our show notes so people can learn more about you. Dabble, breathe, get out of the muck. Are these terms speaking to you? How much time do you spend each day in the muck? A compulsory activity where someone else is telling you how, when, and what to do. Maybe even, aside from being told because I say so, you don't even know why you're doing it. Identify those areas where you feel you are wasting your time and energy. What is it about the activity that makes you feel that way? Maybe you just need a better understanding of the purpose behind it. Or maybe you're right. It really is a waste of time and energy. We all appreciate a level of autonomy, some more than others. Take inventory of your schedule. Make sure you have a good balance of autonomy, time to guide your own work and learning. Because after all, autonomy is key to finding your element.